on this computer. So, good afternoon, everybody. This is the fifth talk in our series of artist talks for the Souk Fine Arts Show this year. My name is Terry Moore. I am with the Souk Fine Arts Society. We're pleased to be bringing these talks to the world this way this year so that we can share them not only online now with people, but also afterwards. The recording, or this will be recorded and shared up on our website for people to view who haven't been able to get to the show this year. So that's what we're doing here. And first of all, I'd like to start with acknowledging respectfully that we're the territory of the Souk First Nation on whose land we gather in celebration of the arts. And yeah, so this is going to be a talk today with Bill Jamieson. Bill is an accomplished glass artist and principal artist of Anthony Jamieson Design Studios. He's done a lot of apprentice work with Michael Provato in 1991 on Main Island. He worked at the Atelier de Verre Cassandra in St. Rosalie, Quebec. Oh, wow. He graduated with honors in 2002 with a diploma in crafts and design glass from Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario, and a student and teaching assistant in the glass program in the Pilchuck Glass School in Stanwood, Washington. So fairly wide variety of places that you've been with your glasswork, Bill. His work is in private collections in Canada and the US, and after working as a studio glass artist from 1991 to 2008, started creating decorative kiln form glass in the studio and shifted that focus from the design and creation to custom pieces, one-of-a-kind architectural panels for residential clients. Oh, the usual interruptions for technology of all sorts. These panels are designed for interior and exterior doors, side lights, and windows, and they're also used for shower walls and doors, privacy panels, and custom water features. And you'll see some pictures of them in the presentation as we go along today. Bill works closely with the clients to design appropriate mounting solutions, and collaborations with First Nations artists and skills craft people and artisans is an integral part of his process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill. Did you want to say a few words first, Bill?
Sure. Thank you. I'm thrilled to actually have pieces in this year's Souk Fine Arts Show. Usually what we do is we create custom commissioned work. So we don't often have works that are available for sale, which is a big departure from when we did decorative glass, fused work and custom slumped work and things like that, where we would create a body of work and then try to interest people in purchasing that. This year, we do have a number of pieces that we created that were available for us to submit for jury, and we were thrilled to be able to be a part of it. So Haichka CM for the opportunity to show our work and for the opportunity to talk about our work.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, I think we'll just jump right into the video portion if you would like to do that.
And
yes.
I am having a technical problem because when my phone rang, I lost the screen. So I can see the gallery, but I'm not sure what I hit to go back to the big screen.
Try hitting escape.
Got Zoom up on the web server, but that's it.
Okay, so can you go down to the bottom of your screen and click the little blue Zoom icon and see if that does a thing for you?
Okay, let's see. There you are.
There we are.
You're back.
This is not the first time that's happened. All right, I'm just going to set up the screen share right now, and perfect. It'll take a moment. And I'm going to go over here to Google Chrome, and I want to get, yep. And I'll just put it so that it's large screen. There we go, and I'll start play. This is about in the right spot, is it, Bill?
Yeah, I guess so.
This was just after.
We'll start.
There we go.
So what we're looking at here is a before shot of a client's dining room windows looking at the neighbor's bathroom window and what we did to create. So this is a quick slideshow of some of the projects we've done. All glass barn doors. We do entry doors, side lights. We do shower walls. This is edge lit with LED lighting, water jet cutting. So there's a variety of techniques. We do a bit of sand carving. This is another shower set. This is edge lit. It's a water feature, a wall-mounted water feature, and again, another water feature. We work a lot with First Nations artists as well. This is Jason Henry Hunt's design and the execution of the final design in the glass. And another shower panel.
Okay.
And this is a collaboration with Val Lancaster, who's Namgish, pair of barn doors. So our projects start with concept sketches that talk about we talk about what you're looking for in a project, and then we'll present a variety of scaled sketches. Those sketches then get developed into the refined sketches that become the master drawing. The master drawing is on the left. That is then transferred onto the mold material that we work with, which is a silica alumina fiber gasket material. So we transfer the graphite from the tracing paper onto that by rubbing. So you can see AJ is in the process of transferring the design now. These are the tools that we work with, a variety of knives, rasps, sandpaper, the respirator, which is important because of the silica. Mm-hmm. And here we are carving out that detail. So this is a time lapse, obviously. We work on a light table, so you're seeing the LED lights as they're kind of, I don't know what they're doing, but it gets you a little crazy. So, so all of the detail gets carved into the fiber. We also work on a bed of sand in the kiln, and we can manipulate that sand. So this is the kiln, removing the fiber from the previous project that we were doing, leveling the sand, putting the screed frame on. So we need to be able to make sure that the glass is level because it's going to be used for architectural purposes. So leveling the sand, we'll run it back and forth a number of times until it's completely flat and even. And then we could actually pattern the sand at this point. In this project, we're not. It's all about the fiber. So we're placing the fiber on. We use the 2x4 as a guide so that we keep everything in alignment. Mm-hmm. Once everything is set, we remove the screed frame. We put a gasket around the border of the kiln. So the kiln is suspended from the ceiling. It's on a cable system, so we can actually work all the way around the kiln without having anything in the way. Mm-hmm. And then we have to pre-fire that material to burn the organic binders off. Mm-hmm. Once that's done, we bring the prepared, cleaned, and bordered glass blank. It's usually 10 mil or 3/8 inch thick clear float glass that we're working with. And we fire that to a temperature of about 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, the glass becomes like warm molasses, and it settles down and takes all the detail that we've carved into the fiber. Because we're working with architectural glass, it can then be tempered, so it becomes safety glass.
Okay.
So
I had somebody, oh, sorry. I had somebody ask that question. Yeah. That had looked at your work online, and they had wondered if the pieces were tempered.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They can also be laminated depending on the application. Okay. So there's a whole variety of things that we had to learn from the work that we used to do to the work that we're doing now. And this is Mr. Noodles and She Who Must Be Obeyed. They're our human resources department. This is coming back from the show in Seattle. So that's basically how we go about the process of creating the work. So really, it begins with a consultation with the client. And as I said earlier, you know, when we walk into a client's home, almost exclusively our clients collect art. You walk in and you recognize Bob Lavabero's fused glasswork, or you recognize Kathy Jefferson's pottery, or you know that you're dealing with somebody who has an appreciation for hand-designed, handmade work, paintings, sculpture, and it helps begin the process of the discussion. And so what we need to do is we need to figure out where the work is going to go, what the scale of the project is going to be. So that little, video that you saw, with the time lapse, that's for 11 windows in a house in Vancouver. That's all of those windows face the neighbor's ugly house. And rather than look at broken stucco and rotting, roofing, they're going to be able to look at something different. And we walked in, and their collection is predominantly First Nations. And we started talking about, well, we work with First Nations artists. Do you want us to collaborate with somebody you collect with, or somebody we work with already? And they said, no, we don't really think that this is where we want First Nations work. What we would like to see is something more abstract. So we started talking about, what does that look like to you? And, we carried on this conversation for about an hour. And as we're walking out the door, the client went, wait a minute, I have these beautiful Damascus steel Japanese knives. And I love the look of the folded steel. So he ran back into the house and he came out with this collection of Japanese knives with all of this beautiful, vein of the folding and the grinding of the metal. So we went, wow, that's really exciting. But it also looks like dendrites on the, when you go up to Long Beach and you walk along the sand beach and you look at how the fresh water is creating patterns in the sand, or the way, you come across a burled piece of driftwood that's been weathered, and you see all of that amazing movement of line in the wood. So it references a whole variety of different imagery that we found really exciting. And so we developed a series of sketches for the various locations in the project. And those are all done as scaled drawings, presented usually over by email. And we refine those until we get exactly what we're looking for. At that point, once we've got the sketches approved, then we blow them up to full-size master drawings. And so we have to take into account all of the technical issues with regards to the architectural glass, borders, because if it's going to be made into a thermal pane unit, we have to have a flat border for it. If it's going to go into a door, it has to have a flat border. You can't have any undulations if it's going in a vinyl window. If it's a shower panel and it's meeting a piece of clear glass, so we answer all of those questions. We decide what kind of mounting system is going to be used. And it helps that I have a construction background. I'm a journeyman carpenter. I worked in residential construction for years. And so I know building codes. I know how to work with designers and architects and contractors and glazing contractors. And so, I know which questions to ask. And it's been great because over the years that we've been working, I've also established really good working relationships with fabricators, glazing installers, glazing contractors, water jet cutters, people that I trust on both sides of the border, that I know I can have a conversation. I can be up here on Main Island and I can be talking with my glazing contractor in Linwood, Washington, and we know exactly what we're talking about, and we can problem solve and come up with solutions to design issues together that then become part of the final installation. So we're working on a project right now. Again, it's a a project where it's the kitchen, master kitchen window that looks on the neighbor's house. And you're standing at the kitchen sink and you're looking in the neighbor. It's a 4-story heritage house with 1 unit per floor. So you're looking in that living room window, you're looking in that bedroom window, you're looking in that bathroom window, and the client wanted something special for that. But she spent a fortune on the existing window. It's a steel mullion framed window with individual window panes. And she really, that's a feature. She wanted to keep that idea of the feature. But it also allows you to think about things like Japanese screens. And she has a katsura tree just outside her window. So that led to the development of the idea of a weeping katsura that just flows across. But looking kind of at it as if you're in the Dr. Sen garden, looking through one of the viewing windows where, they've used terracotta tile to create these geometric patterns that you look through to see these little landscapes that are perfect in that viewing space. So we've worked with that, but that meant how are we going to be able to open the windows so that they can open the outside windows? How can you clean those windows? So, we've gone through a process with the client and, that glazing installer contractor to come up with an elegant solution where everything works. And then he'll take the measurements and I'll have the measurements. We can move forward. So having that relationship of trust with the people that you depend upon to make sure that the project works perfectly is really important. And that's one of the other reasons why we don't generally have work for sale, because your front door is going to have a different dimension than my front door, than somebody else's front door. And so the pieces that are for sale right now, they're framed for display, but if somebody wanted to have them turned into a thermal pane unit to be able to be used for an entry door, well, we can do that. And we work with custom door makers who will make the custom door to fit the glass, to fit the opening. So there's all of these layers that go beyond a painting or a photograph or, a piece of fused work or blown work or turned work, because it is an architectural piece of glass. So, yes.
Do you ever introduce any color into your pieces? I've noticed from some of the pictures, it's one, but do you use enamels for color or?
That's an interesting thing. When I was younger, I used a lot of color in my fused work. And as I started to get more exposed to fused glass particularly, I became kind of overstimulated by the use of dichroic glass in fused work. And when I was in school, one of my teachers was Tanya Lyons, who's a glass blower. She's brilliant, and she only uses clear glass. Meanwhile, I was so homesick from the West Coast, everything I blew in school was green. Different shades of green. I so missed green. And I dived, and the ocean is green, and everything underwater is green, and I'm a green person, and there's no green in Ontario, especially in winter. But Tanya talked about how by not using color, it made you see the work differently. And as I've gotten older, I have discovered that the work that we do is about the play of light. And it's about the constantly shifting play of light on the designs that we create. So at some times of the day or night, it'll look like you're looking at beaten silver. At other times, it's just going to explode with brilliance. And that's what I really like about the technique we use, is you maintain the brilliance of the glass. So it's not, I did sandblasting, well, I still sandblast for detail. And the difference between sandblasting and doing the type of open kiln casting that we do on the architectural glass, you get the design, you get the pattern, you get the layers, but you keep the brilliance. And I love that about it. Now, in terms of the application of enamels and stains, yes, we can, and we've done it. And AJ is trained in it. My apprentice is trained in it. Every time I have done it, I've been disappointed. And every time I've done it, I have taken the work to the client and I've said, this is the work. Are you sure you want us to apply color? And as soon as I apply color, all you see is color. You don't see any of the subtleties. You don't see any of the changing play of light. You don't see any of that movement of sparkle across the piece. That being said, what we started doing, and you'll see some in the slideshow later, is we have started to use optically clear epoxies, and we will create depressed areas in the design where we will glue up pieces of colored art glass. Not necessarily fusible glass. Often it's not. So I've been starting to use more Wismart glass and things like that. And we just finished this piece that's breathtaking. There's a 400 or 500-year-old arbutus tree on this island that is the best kept secret on this island. And I've lived here for 30 years and I only found out about it because of this commission, where the client took me on this tour to find this magical tree that is unbelievably impressive. It's got to be 6 feet across. And the bark is just this swirling design of, you know, that rough texture that arbutus can have at the base through burls and knobs. And part of the other thing that this client has is a collection of colored birdhouses in other arbutus trees on her farm. And beside where this piece is going to go, it's going to be a panel in a custom-made, gorgeous gate that enters into a private patio on her farm. Her grandchildren have painted all these little birdhouses. And so this whole piece is 3 feet by 6 feet, is this giant arbutus from the base with these reaching branches up with these amazing leaves, and then this tiny little multicolored birdhouse with a little tiny dichroic glass circle to represent the whole. And of course, for those who don't know what dichroic glass does, it changes color. It's magical. You know, so this goes through the whole gamut of purples and reds and, you know, golds and blues. And it's just, that's the little eye that looks into the soul of the birdhouse. So it's just this little tiny detail. On one of the shower panels, all of the kelp fronds are done in different shades of green glass. And the bubbles from the otter are in little dichroic glass.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how we do with color. Just, I try to keep it to a minimum. So it doesn't take away from the rest of the project. It just adds a little bit of an accent.
Okay.
So that's
maybe, yeah, maybe this is a good time, Bill, to start looking at the slides and see where we go from there.
Sure. Great.
Okay, let me share screen again here. And I want this one. There we go. Take me a minute to get this now into this format. Oh, we're getting the wheel. It'll take a moment. I don't know if you, there we go. How's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the other side of that sign, which we put up, it usually says the artist is out because we're focused on, you know, we don't really have an open gallery situation. But if we do, you know, if we're set up and we've laid out for a studio tour, then, you know, we'll say the artist is in. And then my apprentice, AJ, she is an urban gorilla, and she'll go put googly eyes on everything. So you know, travel BC ferries and you'll find them on the posters, and you know, they're everywhere. So that's usually because she's also the one responsible for the rubber chickens, by the way.
All right.
All right. So this was a commission for clients on the Sunshine Coast. It's a transom window above their entry doors, and there was a really completely incongruous stained glass window that was up there to begin with, and it didn't match the house. It didn't match the collection of art. It didn't match anything, and it was basically blocking the perception of the ability of the neighbors above to look into their house. And so they wanted to change it, and they wanted something that was evocative of the fact that they live on the ocean, but they wanted it to be organic and more abstracted. So after that series of sketches, this is the sketch that they designed, they came up with. And, I just love the way it looks. And all of these lines are lensed. They're perfect lenses. So they're just beautiful curved shaped pieces of glass.
Yep. There we go.
This is a collaboration with a Coast Salish artist, Corey Douglas. The client had seen another artist's work, a Caucasian artist with no First Nations relationship or heritage, who has become well known for painting her interpretations of weathered totem poles. And I, as part of my education as a settler and as the husband of a First Nations artist, I refused to go there. I've refused to reach out to that artist and ask if we could collaborate. And instead, I put forward the idea of working with a First Nations artist to create this privacy panel. These are 3 separate panels that are in front of an existing thermal pane unit that look on the neighbor's deck. And so this is a design that Corey already had, and we created sort of the embrace of the cedar branches to go around it. And it's really been kind of a wonderful experience because part of my history had, as an artist, I did design First Nations art. And my family has been on the coast for 5 generations. My grandfather was fluent in Chinook. I grew up in a First Nations community, and I have this deep resonance for the work, but I have no First Nations heritage. So as part of my evolution as an individual, I have taken that training that I had learned, and I now collaborate with First Nations artists. I understand what I'm looking at when I'm looking at the design, and it allows for us to have a conversation about how we can achieve the design using our techniques. And it's become quite a wonderful opportunity to engage. And I feel very blessed by having that as part of our studio practice. It has helped me become better educated about the realities of First Nations, the actual legalities of First Nations versus the Crown, the things that I thought I knew that have no basis in reality. I live on an island that is part of the Douglas Treaty area where we were not supposed to settle. I have title on my property, but according to the Douglas Treaty, which predates Confederation, I shouldn't be here. So it's helped me as an individual to become, I think, a more considered and thoughtful person, member of my society. And it has built a really respectful relationship with First Nations artists. And so I really love this piece because there was a lot of that discussion that was going on about how to achieve what Corey visualized when he designed this piece as a two-dimensional print, and how we could turn it into a two-dimensional glass piece, or 2.5 dimensions, I guess. Anyway, that's a long sort of aside for this piece. This is another favorite piece. This is here on Main Island. The clients here are both retired music teachers from the Surrey School District. And they would sail from Crescent Beach across to Main Island in their little 24-foot sailboat. And they would be looking for this narrow gap between Georgeson Island and Wilkes Point that they would come into to come in towards Bennett Bay and ultimately Horton Bay. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to achieve that. So this is one side, and on the other side of the staircase is the other piece of glass, and the staircase represents that passageway between the two islands. And because they're music teachers, you can just see right in the center down here, there's actually musical notation. So the waves have been carved so that they're like musical detail, a musical score. And
okay.
so there are 5 pieces of music. There's another one up in the upper left hand, and there's another, I think, just about here on that piece on the lower third right hand side. And then there's 2 more pieces on the other. One represents his parents' wedding song. One represents her parents' wedding song. One represents their wedding song. And then there's a piece of music for each of their 2 children. And if you know how to read music, then you can hum that first stanza and you'll know what you're listening to. But it's kind of magical. And you don't know it's there. And the whole piece is edge lit from the bottom with LED lighting.
Okay.
So.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Salish Sea. It's something that I've done a number of times. Actually, sorry, no, this isn't the Salish Sea. This is Puget Sound. This is for a commission that we did down for a client in Edmonds, Washington. So here's Lake Washington off in the center of the right-hand side. And we've done a number of nautical charts and topographical maps and things like that. Like I mentioned earlier with the coast of British Columbia, for that client, they're both, now they're retired principals, and they wanted to have the locations where they taught identified. So they're little tiny dichroic dots about the size of a pea in each of the locations where they taught.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah.
This is that that piece that kind of quickly went past in the slideshow on the video. This is a collaboration between my friend Val Lancaster. Val is Namgish. She's Kwakwaka'wakw, lives in Campbell River, and her whole family, her brothers and herself, are all silver and gold jewelers, well known in coastal British Columbia for their jewelry. Got to know Val quite well when she lived here on Main Island. And when this client came to us with the idea of wanting something that was ethereal, magical, a bit whimsical, with hints of little fish swimming through that you can just see if you're looking carefully, and this giant First Nations moon, she was the natural choice to go to. There was another artist that she had found the artwork for, and I reached out, but never did hear back from him. So I reached out to Val, and it's just this breathtaking design. And it's another one of those situations where the client had an appreciation for First Nations art, but really had never engaged with a First Nations person. And my relationship with First Nations artists is I am a facilitator, and I will work to collaborate and incorporate those designs in our work, but that relationship is with the client. So it allows, in this case, it allowed this client to have her first engagement with a First Nations artist to commission a piece of First Nations art that became part of a larger project. And in the beginning, she had really no interest in knowing who this person was. And in the end, she was bragging to all her friends all about Val's work and, you know, who Val is. And you know, that made me feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it's a pair of barn doors that separate the master bedroom from the ensuite bathroom. So they slide open to create the open space and then slide closed.
Gorgeous.
And I told you about the use of color, and this is that shower wall that I was mentioning. And there are some detail shots coming up that we can look at in closer detail. This piece has been water jet cut along the top, so you've got the feeling of the cresting wave. Normally, I would tack fuse on broken shards of glass for the froth, but because this piece had to be tempered, I couldn't do that. So they're applied with the epoxy, and then these are the dichroic bubbles and the colored glass coming through. And it's edge lit with color changing LED that's built into the wall. So that's all part of it.
So you would have started with a the clear float glass,
Yes.
done a design, tempered it, and then epoxied the embellishments on?
That's right. And that's what I do. That's what I do with the colored pieces as well. Yeah.
Okay.
The problem, you know, I might be able to get away with tempering enameled glass.
Mm-hmm.
There's a woman down in Seattle that I see at shows that does fusing onto glass, and she swears that her work is tempered. I don't know how she can do it. You know, because I'm just displacing glass, I have no trouble with tempering it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't dare try to temper a piece of fused glass. But she says hers are.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd be concerned with enameling or stained, finishes, is when you take it back up again to the temperature that's required to fuse it, you're at the temperature where you're fluxing the colors, and I think you would find that a lot of your colors would just wash out or burn off. So I tend to look at doing those things as embellishments rather than as pieces that can then be sent off to be fused. If it was required, they could be enameled. It could be, you could do the enameling and the staining and then send it off to be laminated to make it into a piece of safety glass as well. Right. So that is possible. So you could do that. This is the shower system that we were talking about that showed up earlier. So you see the octopus, he's got a little dichroic eye, which you can just see. And then his tentacle is wrapping around a single hole, which holds the pulse. So that instead of having a handle, you have just a single clear pole that doesn't take away from the design. This is the glass after it's been cast in the kiln on the mold material. And I don't have a finished photograph of the actual installation. This is for a garden gate, but the design was just so beautiful. The peonies are they're one of my favorite flowers, and to be able to create something like this was quite a gift. So, that's the other thing about doing commission work. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know what the artist is going to want. So it's constantly taking you in different directions that you've never explored before.
Mm-hmm.
I have one friend who's a painter, and she does an excellent job of painting pears, koi, and birch trees. And rarely does she move beyond that, because that's her niche, and that's what sells for her. I have her only dragonfly painting. I love her dragonfly painting, but you know, you can so easily get kind of stuck in a style or a technique, or you know, but because of the way we engage with our clients, it's like it takes us in places we wouldn't think to go.
Mm-hmm.
So here you can see a better shot with the lighting, with the application of the color.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those are glued into insets in the casting. So there is a depression in the glass surface of the glass that accepts those. So those pieces of glass all have to be perfectly cut to fit that. There's an awful lot of back and forth to the polishing machine. Sanding a little bit more, sanding a little bit more, and then, you know, the application of the epoxy and making sure that you're not putting too much epoxy in, that you're not trapping air bubbles, that, you know, the whole thing it just works. And I think this is one of the most fun pieces that we've ever done. And again, I never would have gone there if the client had said, hey, can we have color in the fronds? And it was like, okay. So a trip down to Northwest Art Class and going through all of their selection of Wismark, and I like that sheet, and I like that sheet. And the nice thing is, you know, so often as artists, we're kind of limited when we're dealing with materials. You know, we have limited budgets, we have limited limits that we place on ourselves. Well, with this, I don't feel like I have a limitation. I can go down, I can buy a whole sheet of this and bring it back. And then I can choose out of that sheet the color flow that works for the design, and feel that I've done the client proud, you know, or you know, I've looked after the client's desires by doing that, rather than getting just the right amount of glass and then, gee, the sweep of color isn't working. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you ever use UV glue instead of epoxy?
I've done UV glue. I do use UV glue for other things. The problem is the volume of work that I'm doing. The very first project we did, we were using dichroic glass for discs that were 6 inches in diameter down to about 2 inches in diameter. Now, UV glue works when you're perfectly flat to perfectly flat, right? And you've got a couple micron thick layer. Well, this isn't perfectly flat, and art glass isn't really perfectly flat. And so you have to flood it. And what ended up happening on that project was, as the UV glue cured, it created so much tension that it broke the dichroic glass. And so we have a piece of it actually in the entrance of our studio, right beside the artist's in sign. And you know, if you look at it, you can see the stress that's been created. Whereas the epoxy doesn't do that. It just kind of fills the void, floats out. It's optically clear. It gives me the opportunity to move the work. If I've got too much glue in, it gives me the opportunity to remove the glue. So I'm much happier using the epoxy than I am. But that being said, I have UV glue as part of my studio toolkit. And that's the image. So in a lot of situations, then you notice that in the image where the piece was installed, in a lot of the locations, we really can't get a very good image of the work because of the limitations in terms of the architecture of the structure. So what we try to do is, for pieces like that, we'll try to shoot them on a display in or outside of our studio, so that we have a visual record, and that way you can really get a sense of the play of light. You can see that clear window up here over the cresting wave, which you couldn't see at the other. You get a sense of the color and the lovely lensing that you get with the bull kelp.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Oh,
I think that's it.
It is. I'm going to stop the share
Wonderful.
there, but we can still continue with the, whoops, when I do that, we'll do this and we'll do the conversation. How's that?
Sure.
Yes. So we can still continue conversation. I'm sure, Eileen, do you have any more questions for Bill?
Not that I can think of, although I probably will have a gazillion when I lie in bed at night to wake recall and think of your pictures. I do have kiln envy.
Well, the kiln, we designed and built our first top hat kilns. We had the first one built by Estrin years ago. Estrin was a Vancouver kiln maker. And it allowed for us to do manipulated draping. So one of our stock in trade was doing these vases where we would take a piece of either just a sheet of bullseye glass or sandblasted glass or a piece of fused glass, and we would manipulate it into a handkerchief vase. And I noticed there's a piece that Bob has on it's Simple Innocence, I think it's called. It's sort of this lovely, he did a beautiful job of the balancing of the form when he slumped it. That's kind of what we did as a stock and trade form for years and years and years. So we designed our kilns to be able to allow that. When we decided we wanted to get into architectural glass, I had taken the workshop in 2006, and we decided that we were going to make the jump in 2008. And so we'd signed up for all of the shows for Christmas, and as craftspeople, the Christmas shows are where you make your money. So we were going all across Canada. We were in the One of a Kind show. We were going to Regina. We were in Calgary. We were in Circle Craft. And so we spent the whole year amassing this massive volume of glass, because we were hoping to take the revenues from that and make the modifications to the studio that would allow us to do the architectural work. What happened in October of 2008?
Oh, geez, yes.
We managed to cover our expenses, and I had $100,000 worth of glass left afterwards.
Wow.
It took me, I still have some of it. It took years to get rid of it. And if it hadn't been for an inheritance, I probably wouldn't be able to do this. But I was able to use part of my inheritance to make the changes that were required in the kiln to design and build the kiln. And of course, it's 10 inches too short.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, 8-foot ceilings, fine, 92 inches, that's about the biggest I'm going to get. Do you know how many people have 10-foot ceilings? How many people have 8-foot doors and want glass that is going to be, side lights that are 8 feet tall? It's like, So that water feature that you saw in the slideshow that was in front of the stone wall, the 3 panels of,
yes,
that's up in Whistler. I had to go up to the central, I had to dismantle my entire studio. I had to load all the sand in tubs and all of the rest of my materials into the van, and I leased Rob Studer's studio. Rob has the kiln that I have kiln envy for. I think he calls it Barbie. And we leased his kiln to cast those 3 panels because they were bigger than we could do. I think his kiln would let you do 10 feet long. So if I'd been smart, I would have said, okay, do it this at a foot.
Yeah.
So, it creates interesting opportunities, though. We have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
As creators, we are always thinking outside the box. Somebody throws something at us, well, we can't do it that way. How can we do it?
Yeah.
And being able to work with great fabricators. You know, one of the projects I'm looking at is a seafood restaurant in Orlando, Florida, and they want a curtain wall of glass. And so he's asking, can I do 13-foot tall glass? Well, no, I can't, but I can do individual panels that could be all joined in an organic form that could create this great underwater scene, you know, where the framework, you know, allows me to do pieces that fit, right? So you just have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And multiples work just fine. Yeah.
But as big as the calendars you have, there's always, like I said, one that would be nice was a little bit bigger. Yes. So
true, so true. So anyway, that's kind of who we are and what we do. I think I feel very fortunate to be able to push the boundaries. I mean, I've taken what I learned from Pilchuck, from Warren Langley, who taught me this technique. He's from Australia, and he had a very successful commercial business doing this, doing a lot of commercial work. He had an operation in China, one in Britain, and one in Australia, and then bad business partner, that all went sideways. And when we decided to do this, you know, there are other people who do architectural cast glass in the same kind of processes that we do. And they focus more on large projects, casinos, cruise ships, you know, hotel lobbies, things like that. And I really wanted to focus on the residential client. And one of the things I was finding that was really interesting for me around that time of 2006, 2007, my market was changing. And the people who were interested in our work said that their houses were full, that they had their collections, that there was no more room for them to add to their collections. They were starting to think about downsizing. They were starting to think about moving into spaces that were more manageable for them, freeing up equity, things like that. Young people weren't interested in it the way that their parents had been. And those people, a lot of the people that I was talking with, you know, were talking about the difficulties that they had in terms of finding space, but they all have doors. They all have side lights. They all have windows that look at the neighbor's ugly siding, or, you know, and to me, working with light and being fascinated with light, and, you know, I describe it in like I'm a high functioning autistic. I can get lost in the play of light, in the dance of you know, the pattern of the sunlight on the ocean, or when I'm underwater. I mean, I can lose complete track of time when I'm looking through a kelp forest and watching the sunlight filtering through. It's just magical, and this gives me the opportunity to express that in a way that people can incorporate into their physical lived structure, and they can enjoy that on a daily basis as the light shifts and changes. So, you know, I feel very, very fortunate, and to be able to do that in a place like Main Island, you know, where you know, my studio is attached to the home. You know, it's 5 minutes walk out my bedroom door into the separate studio space. I have an amazing apprentice who, if you haven't gathered by the googly eyes and Mr. Noodles, she who must be obeyed, is a constant source of joy and laughter. The days, just the weeks, the months. I mean, here we are, we're at the end of July. And it was only yesterday that we were down in Seattle and in Vancouver doing the last shows before all this shut down. You know, it's just like, where did the time go?
Yeah.
Well, your work is beautiful. It really is. And, you know, I think fortunate for us, for the Fine Arts Society, that you did have some pieces available. So that way, like I said, it for our members and also the people who, you know, view the show and whatever would have an opportunity to see it. So yes, that's, like I said, I really appreciate it. I understand what you're saying, being a glass artist, and this has now got me thinking of, you know, different things. But yes, no, I really enjoy your work.
Well, thank you. And you know, if you have questions about anything to do with architectural application of your work, you know, let me know. You know,
Okay.
I have, you know, I've been in this game for a long time, and you know, there's a lot of knowledge that you acquire. And there are lots of ways of making things work, which, you know, I'm always, it's a huge leap of faith to go from what you're comfortable doing to doing something so far out of the box. And that's what it was like for us. You know, for the first couple of years, my business partner, Michael, who's now retired, he's the Anthony part of it, Anthony Jamieson. You know, we'd go to Circlecraft, and I'd be wanting to just take the architectural work to showcase what we can do. And Michael would say, yeah, but the show is so expensive. We have to cover our costs. And so he would want to be bringing the decorative work that, you know, it made our bread and butter on. And I would say, you know, okay, but that's not where my focus is. If you want to produce work to do that, then, you know, I'll help you, but I really don't, the focus really should be this. And it really came to roost when I was dealing with clients who were talking about a $10,000 project, and there was a woman standing there with two $14 tea lights in her hand. And, you know, I had to deal with her, and when I came back to the client, they left. And it was like, you know, you can't do that. You know, you're either doing what you're wanting to be doing, you know, and committing to that, regardless of how terrifying it is, you know, and giving that all of your attention, or, you know, it's not going to work. You can't split yourself like that. So that was the last year we went with the decorative work.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time today, taking the time to share with us your obviously vast knowledge of what it is that you do, but also in a lovely spiritual talk. I really felt touched by a lot of the things that you had to say. So I appreciate that very much, and I think I'm pretty sure Eileen does too. And for future viewers of this video, I think they'll get that too. So thank you again for taking the time with us today, and for submitting to the show. My only regret is that I didn't get to see those pieces in person. I would love to have seen them in person. But
well, you know, Main Island is not that far away.
It's not that far.
I would say, Terry, maybe we need to make a trip.
I think there's a road trip coming up. I'm pretty sure.
No, we're happy to do that. We do have, you know, we practice safe protocols. We sanitize the studio every day, and masks are required in the studio. So AJ and I live a very we're part of each other's bubble, so we're fine. You'll see we'll be wearing, you know, particle respirators for, you know, working with material. But when we do open the studio up for guests, you know, masks are required.
Right.
Other than that, yeah, we welcome anybody who'd like to reach out and come for a studio tour.
Oh, terrific. That's really wonderful. Good to know. I'm going to end the recording right now with a great big thank you again.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.